welcome, guys, to the very first show. I'm kind of really excited. It took me a while to get it together for you guys who've been following me on social media, but welcome to Convos with TK, where we have a chit chat with some of the most interesting people in the world. And today is no exception. He's been in the radio industry for over 25 years and making hit radio shows. And he is the man behind the curtain for Big Boy's Neighborhood on Real 92.3. He's one of my mentors, which I'm very thankful for. Please welcome executive producer Jason Ryan. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Wow, what a buildup. I was looking around to see who you were talking about. I was like, wait, who, me?
You, of course. And it's kind of funny because it's not funny, but I think a lot of people who are not really versed in the radio industry, they just think that there's just like one person or maybe, whoever they hear on the mic, but there's way more stuff that's involved. Sure. Can you break down what exactly an executive producer is? Because I think a lot of people get confused.
Well, I mean, I'll give you my definition, but understand also that, company by company, market by market, show by show, it can mean something completely different. I mean, there are people that I know that had an executive producer title that doesn't match what I do. But anyway, for me, I run most everything that has to do with Big Boy. So if you know Big Boy from the Los Angeles radio show, Real 92.3, iHeartMedia, back in the day, our show was on Power 106. It's been nationally syndicated for many, many years as well. You can hear it on apps. You can hear it on radiobigboy.com. Virtually anything that you see or hear that has to do with Big Boy, audio or video, it goes through my hands. So for me, executive producer is a very wide-ranging title. There are just a couple, parts of his business that I don't oversee, but it's basically watching over the entire empire and making sure it's being represented right, making sure it's being sold right, marketed right, all of that, and it's a huge team to oversee for sure.
That's a lot. That's a lot more than I knew.
I will see that's why EP doesn't really fit anymore. So we call ourselves business partners. So I mean it's
okay.
For iHeart's purposes, I'm an executive producer because I am the showrunner that makes sure that they have a hit show every day. But for Big, we're producing partners, we're business partners because there's so much more than just the iHeart show. So there's a lot. Yeah.
So let's talk about like how you talked about a hit show. So Big Boy's been around for a while. For folks who don't know them, you got to been living under a rock. Like how did you curate or how did it become a hit show? Like what is there like certain steps that you took, or was it the luck of the draw, or how did that work out?
Yes, and yes. All of those things are true. So I met Big in 1998, and at that moment, he had been doing mornings for about 6 months at our previous station. The morning show wasn't doing that well. So he inherited a morning show that wasn't doing that well. And in the first 6 months, it hadn't really taken off either. So in those days, in 1998, Power 106 was not the destination in mornings. It just wasn't. So we were having to really change people's behaviors, which is a tall task. People are used to hip hop mostly in afternoons and evenings. Again, back then, there was not another hip hop show in town. That was the only station, and there wasn't. And also in those days, there wasn't a lot of song sharing. So in today's standards, we're filming this in the very end of 2021. You might hear The Weeknd on a pop station. You might hear The Weeknd on a smooth jazz, almost R&B station, and you'll hear him on a hip hop station. That didn't happen as much back in the day. Music was very, very segregated. Not to sound racial, but just it's very separated by genre.
Yeah.
You didn't share music with a lot of people. So we were the only hip hop morning show really at that point. So it's like Big Big Boy had already worked for several years, in afternoons and nights. He did very well there. LA, embraced him very quickly. He's just so damn funny. Can we curse on here?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you can.
We can? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know who the audience is. In my world, I'm like, don't curse.
Oh no, it's I kind of
radio.
feel like be who you are. We want to hear it all.
Well, I like to ask the rules first, but anyway, Big's so fucking funny that it was great coming in, and he already had a really strong sense of self. So it's like we created this culture and we created this field together where I didn't teach him hip hop and he didn't teach me structure and marketing. So, by this point, I already had my master's in marketing. I had been a teacher, not exactly sounding like, the perfect background for hip hop, but.
You were a teacher?
Yeah, see, fire your research person. Jeez.
You have, oh my, that makes a lot of sense in how you interact with people. Wow. Okay.
Well, yeah.
Right.
I mean, when you look at it in reverse all the way back, it's genius, right? Because it's like I teach people on a daily basis how to be their best possible personalities. I coach talent. And, so that's the teaching part. And the marketing part, I mean, I market a huge brand. So it all makes sense. But I didn't go to school saying I'm going to run the biggest hip hop brand in the West Coast. That's not how it started in my mind. But
wow, that's crazy. Okay. So in applying it to, well, let's go back to the main question, how this all started.
Yes.
So the thing with radio is they've been saying
radio.
Did I
not answer any of that?
No, you did. But how it all started, how like you became the first guest on the show is because the reason I created the show is to like talk to really interesting people, not necessarily about like one specific thing. They're just so like interesting people have a lot of different things going on. And
Sure.
For you, it's just kind of one of those things where a lot of people have been saying since like I was in school that radio is dying. And that was, we're approaching like 10 years now. Right. So, and it's still evolving, it's evolving and it's changing. So do you think radio is dying or do you like, where do you think radio is going to end up?
Okay, well, let's take the first one to start. Is radio dying? I've heard the same things, from when I started my career, which was a long, long time ago. Clearly, it's false. Now, it depends who you are. So I'm going to nuance the answer a little bit here. So there was a time when all markets, different cities and areas are called markets in radio. So it's like you work for a market. Los Angeles market covers Los Angeles up to Lancaster, all the way out to Oxnard, almost out to Palm Springs, and as far down as Orange County. Orange County doesn't have its own market. So that's a market, right? And when you work in these markets, it used to be that all the markets were different. You didn't have people working in multiple cities. So over time, what has happened is, not to be insulting to the people who used to do it, but the C and D level shows all got canned because companies figured out, oh, wait, if I'm paying X amount of dollars to Rick Dees or Big Boy, or I can't remember if Kevin and Bean were ever syndicated, but when you could put on better talent to do multiple shows in multiple markets, it did get a lot of the mediocre shows fired, and it's never nice. It's never a good thing when people get let go. It's upsetting.
Right.
So to those people, radio's dying because it's not local anymore, and it's not real. People that know, Tuscaloosa back and forth. So people could have that perspective, right? And also, I think that people. I don't think that radio markets itself well enough as an industry. Individual stations can do a fantastic job of marketing themselves. But as an industry, radio just kind of let this happen, which I think is horseshit. It's like all the money that went into Sirius XM and all the hoopla of Howard Stern leaving and going there. And and in the beginning it was Howard and Oprah and Martha Stewart and everybody went there. Well, you don't hear about any of them anymore. You only hear about Howard now. And it's a great show. Howard is a fucking genius. Don't get me wrong. But for a lot of people, they hear about Sirius. They hear about Pandora and, Apple Music and even iHeart, its own app, that we have and all of these other companies. And so there's this mindset of like, oh my God, I've got 100 different choices now. And so, radio, like who listens to that? Well, the truth is that 95% of people still have a radio in their car. They don't all have, access to Sirius. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't want to pay for it.
Right.
Not everybody has easy access or uses Pandora, or Spotify in their car. So the reality is that because radio is what people have known, it still has, the biggest footprint out of anybody, and it's not being chipped away. You look at ratings for, satellite or for Pandora, things like that. They're crumbs. And I'm not saying that to be a dick. It's just the truth. It's like those shows don't add up to make any truth to the statement of saying radio is dying. Now, sure, things are done. I just had this conversation with my girlfriend yesterday. I remember in Los Angeles at the peak of just, oh God, radio. Oh my God. The station that was called The Beat in Los Angeles, huge station. It was a huge competitor for us when we were at Power 106. At its height, that station sold for $500 million. Okay. It changed hands for $500 million. Okay. I can't remember the year, so excuse me, but we'll say around 2000, let's just say. You fast forward, and in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, when Power 106, as the company that we knew, went out of business after we left, that station sold for about 85 million. Power 106, the brand that everyone in Los Angeles still knows to this day, a 30-year-old powerhouse, excuse the pun, of a brand, sold for less than 20% of the value of, what it was, years before. So I don't feel that everybody's wanting to get into the radio business anymore, but it doesn't mean that there's no value there. And also, we all eat, and we all eat pretty good. We make good livings, when you still are part of a powerful brand. I'm sure there are a lot of folks on the smaller side that would see it differently. But yeah, shit, how many years has Seacrest been making gazillions of dollars and employing a lot of people and being all across the country? Our show does that. Howard Stern's show does that. The Woody Show does that. Ellen Kay, when she took over mornings in Los Angeles, huge. Elvis Duran, the list goes on and on. So there's less players, but they're all bigger fish.
Okay. So now you being, seeing it all or seen a lot of it, and say somebody wants to get into the radio industry, because I still know a lot of people who that's the goal. What would be your suggestion
on how to get in the radio industry?
Yeah, how to get in the radio industry and succeed. Because you can get in, but that's a whole succeeding is a whole another beast.
How much time do you have for this episode? Well, I'll put it this way, because my advice hasn't changed. I've been asked this question a lot over the years. Big Boy, of course, has been asked it. He's the face, but a lot of college campuses that have, like broadcasting, classes and degrees, one of the requirements was to go interview somebody in the industry. So I've done a lot of interviews over time and get similar questions like this, to which I say, in order to succeed, you have to have incredible talent. You have to have drive. You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to, know someone. And just even those 4 stars all have to perfectly align at the right time. It's hard. it's hard as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could work for years and years and years and, still just be like, clawing. It's very, very hard. That's why when I just said, some of the brands that I named, I mean, I stopped at about 6, but in Los Angeles alone, there's 82 radio stations on terrestrial radio. I can't
Yeah.
name 15 shows, let alone 80. And then you multiply that, by city. So I'm far from a Debbie Downer, but it's tough as shit. And so I think that if you have talent and you're really passionate for radio, great. Find other people with a like-minded cause, like myself or others that get it, have done it, know how it really works. Not to be insulting to our teachers and people like that, but learning in a classroom doesn't mean squat compared to the actual experience. And beyond checking all the boxes of having all the things right, of what a radio station or what a conglomerate, what a syndicator may need, you also have to learn politics. If you don't understand how an office works, if you don't, well, look who I'm telling, right? If you got to learn how to play the game, and I'm not talking Harvey Weinstein shit. I just mean like you have to learn how the place runs and who's in charge, how it works. Sometimes well, I'll leave it at that. I mean, it's a tough gig.
Yeah.
But
I feel like,
but you got to start with being the best goddamn talent that's doing something different that we haven't heard. Because if you just have a nice voice, that shit stopped 20 years ago. Or maybe you could go work at, the Wave. If you've got a really great voice and you up next, it's Maxwell. Like, there might still be like a little place for that. But for what we do, it's about personality radio. It's about people that get you to stay listening, not just because you can intro a song. Like, that's not that unique a talent.
So for you, in your partnership with Big Boy, is it about seeing like forward thinking, like, seeing stuff 3 months, 6 months, a year out and kind of planning according to that? Or like, you like you said in the very beginning, all the stuff that you do, like, is that the main thing and then kind of going backwards?
You're saying see that far ahead as far as like content or talent, or what do you?
Content as far as Big Boy's Neighborhood and essentially all the other businesses that you guys have together.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, content has to be forward looking, and I think that for us specifically, so we're a mature brand. We've been around a long time, so it's our challenge to keep the people happy that know the show, love Big. I mean, the verdict's in. The world loves Big Boy. Wonderful. Yeah. I don't have to start over on convincing people how great he is or how funny he is. That's already established. Wonderful. That makes my job easier, right? But I also have to consistently challenge ourselves, including Big, including the rest of our team, that, well, do you eat at In-N-Out every single day? Do you go to Hometown Buffet every single day? Well, maybe you're tired of the fucking meatloaf. So we have to continually keep people happy with what they love, but also keep evolving. Because if they've heard the same storyline or the same joke on our show, well, what's next? Enough. Like any show that you watch. Like, I'm a huge fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't know if you watch that show with Larry.
I do.
Okay, so he's on his 11th season. There are seasons when I watch that show and I'm like, he's mailing it in. And easy for me to say, tell Larry David, he can go, he's like Scrooge McDuck. He can dive and bathe in his $100 bills, in a freaking vault. But those are all things that I watch. And again, my friends and family, I know I bug them sometimes because when I'm watching content, I'm constantly like talking about how it was done, how it was produced, where they cut corners, what they got right, when it's right too. But that's always my concern, is losing relevance or becoming stale. And I'll tell you what, when you've been doing things for a long time, it's easy to do. I've watched it happen to the best of them. There's talents that I absolutely admired and still admire to this day, and watched it. And I watched them just get a little too stuck on themselves, maybe a little too rich, a little too out of touch, and they're not on the air anymore, So it's like you really have to do, I wouldn't even say every 3 months. I mean, it's like ask my staff every week. I'm beating the table of like, what else? We got to keep this ball moving. Otherwise it's not interesting.
And with that being said, we have like the onset of podcasts and social media and like a lot of stuff that wasn't around when you guys essentially started. So
Right.
how do you incorporate that into, the brand?
Sure. So all of those things are for us. Well, let me just answer it straight. So we do all of that because it's our job to find people where they are. It's not just you make an appointment to be on Real 92.3 at 7:10 because you're going to hear a funny phone tap from Big Boy and Luther Lufay. That marketing used to work, but now, people have more than one choice. Well, they have a lot more than one choice then too, but I just mean they have more choices in media, not just in shows, right? So, if we get up in the morning and somebody is brushing their teeth, drying their hair, getting the kids ready, cooking breakfast, throwing a Pop-Tart in the toaster before they get out the door, we can't assume that they are hanging by our every word and hearing every part of a story that we're trying to tell, or a joke, or whatever it may be, or a piece of a guest interview. So people have now, I feel, the best possible ways to still embrace their favorite shows, which is our show, for example, puts out the entire show in the afternoon online. So if you missed it in the morning, our promos tell you, well, come back and listen to the full show podcast in the afternoon, radiobigboy.com. If you're a big fan, boom, you can listen to it. And even there, you can fast forward and cut through the parts, you don't have to listen to the commercials, perhaps, right? So there's that. There's YouTube, which we're very active on. There's TikTok. There's Instagram. There's all of these different places where we need to be present with our audience so that they don't fall in love. It's like, how do you keep your mate, right? It's the same way. How do you keep your audience? You still want them to love you. You still want them to pick you as number one. And the joy about it is that there's so many different, ways to still reach our audience that are new, which is great. But I also warn shows to be careful of knowing what you're chasing, because, you could invest a lot of money in a digital team, but if your on-air numbers slide, who gives a shit? We get paid by ears, not eyes, to start. And I have to remind my staff of this often as well. Okay. So the radio show that's live every day, that show is our number one. That's the big stage. So that is our number one priority. And then from there, everything else happens, not the other way around. Not, we got 100,000 views on Instagram. Who cares? We didn't get paid one fucking penny for that. Who cares? Don't get me wrong. 100,000, that's wonderful, right?
Right.
But it doesn't move the checkbook. And at the end of the year, when everybody looks around and is like, what about me? Can I get promoted? Can I get a raise? Blah, blah, blah. Well, how did we put more money on the books? We don't get all of these things that people get. It's like there was that dog in the movie Up, where he gets distracted and he's talking and he's like, squirrel, right? Like people get so distracted with all of these social media places, and it's great, good for those handles, but not the best for us. They have to be seen today, they have to be seen as supports, but not the pillars. The pillar of radio is still radio. You have to put out a kick-ass fucking show every day. And then the rest.
Trickle down.
Number one has to be the on air by far.
Yeah, you can apply that to everything. It's kind of like crazy when you even think about, people with, podcasts and stuff like that. They get the podcast, but then they don't perfect, the content of the podcast, but they want to look at everything else. So, I mean, that could be sage advice for pretty much anything. So definitely, y'all listen to the guru speak. Just saying.
No
now,
guru, just a guy that had some good ideas and got lucky.
Oh my gosh, that's so not true. So for y'all who don't know, now to give like so I used to work at the iHeartRadio, and that's how I met Jason. And the reason why I call him my mentor is because you always just give so much great information of just about life in general. So not just like, and it makes sense because some people give you advice and you're just kind of like, I don't know, that sounds a little bit emotional. Yours is very like, okay, this makes this makes sense. You might not
always
like
tell the quality of advice by the tone of voice.
Yeah, no, but not even that. Some people, they make it because it's like emotional. Well, who gives what they like? You know what I'm saying? It's just like you've been consistent throughout since I've known you. And you've never given me advice where it's just kind of like, well, it's totally off the other side. It just makes sense for the person you're giving it to. So that's what I'm saying, guru.
I try my best. And well, you also have met me, after a lot of time. If you would have met me at the very beginning, maybe my advice wouldn't have been as good, perhaps. But
okay. Well,
I've seen a lot, so I'm happy to share. I feel the thing is weird to me sometimes is that it used to be, depending on the personalities and the radio companies, radio used to be pretty cutthroat, and there was fairly competitive. And if you liked this show, you had to hate this show. And I remember for the first radio station I ever worked at was Kiss FM in Los Angeles, and this is Kiss FM by today's standard is a diamond. It's a monolith. It's unbelievable, right? But when I worked there, it was not the cool station. It was not the station that people liked. I mean, people would throw stuff at us at the vans and stuff. It was not loved.
Oh, wow.
So, but what I've learned over all this time, guess what? I'm still working, and Kiss FM is kicking ass more than it ever has, right? And, there's room for everyone to eat. And so that's one of the things that I try to remind people of too. Like, it's not a war. It's not, I mean, keep whatever you think you need to do to get ahead, whether it's radio, whether it's something else that you do, keep your integrity of what you do as yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you lose your job, and we will all lose our jobs one day, we all are working for somebody, right? Or the audit, where even if you're not working for a boss, you're working for the listeners, and at some point we're all going to lose it. What do you go back to after that? If you've burned bridges and you're just a jackass to everybody and whatever, like that's not a good outlook. So that's why I feel there's room for everyone to eat. And if the Woody Show is beating us, but we're friends in the hallway. And if Seacrest is making this show better because they're learning things from it, or whatever it may be, I think it's really important to remember that through all of these choices and passions that people have, just be authentic and don't come in with a knife, like just like win on your merits because you can.
Yeah. I definitely
It's hard
agree.
work, but you can.
I don't even, maybe one day I'll tell stories. It's crazy. So now
What
you
a
guys,
tease that was.
I know, right? I don't. People don't want to.
This is where you cut to commercial with that killer tease you just did.
So now you've kind of set up a lot of big interviews. Is there anybody like, taking out the ratings, like you would love to see interviewed by Big Boy
That we haven't done?
that you haven't done?
Okay. Gosh, I mean, I am such a I mean, I love our show as it is. I am a huge, fan of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love to see Big in a room with Jim Carrey. I think we had Jim Carrey on for just a blink many, many
Mm-hmm.
years ago from a red carpet, which doesn't really count, but he was on the show.
Yeah.
Um,
What about Eddie? Has Eddie been on? Eddie Murphy?
Gosh, they promised us Eddie when they did Coming to America 2,
Uh-huh.
and it didn't happen. I didn't believe it because he just doesn't do much. Eddie would be great. Eddie did a really great interview with Seinfeld on his Comedians with Cars Getting
Yeah,
Coffee.
I saw
I
that.
love
Mm-hmm.
that show. I mean, he's been gone too long, but I would have loved if Robin Williams was on our show. I heard Robin Williams on Rick Dees when I was a kid
Mm-hmm.
promoting Good Morning Vietnam. I don't even know what year that was, but it was a long fucking time ago. I mean, it was just electrifying of just that energy. And it was so much, fun. Robin would have been great. Gosh, that's a hard question because it's a really small pond of who we haven't had.
Right.
Musically, I mean, we have and will continue to probably get damn near everybody, unless for some
Right.
reason they don't want to do interviews. But yeah, there's some comedians and some folks that I would have loved to seen come through, though too. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Now, thinking of your time in radio, is there a moment? This is a two-part question. There's like the most
Mm.
memorable moment of your radio career, and the most memorable learning lesson of your radio career.
That God. See, I'm so analytical. It's tough for me to answer an emotional question quickly because I'm trying to now like go through my head and like really, really analyze the answer. Let me start with the lesson.
Okay.
I told this story the other day when I was working out. So many years ago, we had a phone interview with Jamie Lee Curtis back when Halloween was her comeback, like the first time, which was
Mm-hmm.
1998, 1999, whenever that Halloween movie came out then. We're on remote. So add to the variables of what could go wrong. We're not in the studio. We're not running our own equipment. Someone's on the phone from somewhere else, right? We've got somebody running the board, and then they tell me, off air through the equipment, like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis is on, is ready. I said, okay, great. I said, we've still got a few minutes. While we're waiting, have her read a couple of the liners. Yeah, this is Jamie Lee Curtis, the only hip hop morning show, but whatever the liner was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the person misconstrued what I said and came back and said, oh, she's really upset because it's like you're calling her a man. And I said,
Wait, what?
What? And so apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently there was some rumor that she was like a hermaphrodite or something. I have no knowledge of that. There was no joke. I was not trying to be funny. I knew nothing about it, right? But this person who did not work with us very much longer after this, took some weird thing that and wrecked a relationship, right? And I mean, I'm glad that Jamie Lee Curtis, no offense, isn't like Drake. That was like, it would be like a relationship, like, oh God, like that would be career ending, if you fuck up that relationship, right? But the lesson I learned in there too is I really needed to be careful moving forward on who I trust and remembering that not everyone, even if they smile to your face, have the same agenda as you. So the lesson, definitely, it wasn't backbreaking. It didn't, wreck anything for the show. It did wreck our relationship with this gentleman. And yeah, I mean, so it was a huge lesson of like, wow, this guy pulled some stupid shit and was like really trying to I still don't know fully what he was trying to do. It was like some power play he was trying to make or something. I mean, it didn't work, but it was just, I was so mortified in the moment,
right?
But I was just like, wow, like what a dick.
So the lesson that you learned with that, how you necessarily do you watch people first before you give them tasks to do, or what did you kind of apply next time?
Sure. I mean, there's that. In that circumstance, it was very early in the show, so I didn't have a say in this person's role when we were out working on remotes, per se. But it did absolutely teach me to have a very active role in who's on the show, what they're about. And another huge lesson of it, which I still say to this day to our staff, whether you are on a phone call with us at night, whether you're on a Zoom type recording like we're on now, whether you're just standing in a studio with all the power off, someone is always listening. So be careful what you say. We had an incident many years ago where we were also on remote. Remotes are really a wild card. You could really fuck up a lot on a remote because you're distracted, and more often than not, you're out at a place that wants you to promote whatever it is they're doing, and you get distracted. We were at a theme park, and one of our people on the show had their computer plugged into the board to run news clips during news, but they were previewing, they thought they were previewing, and they were watching dirty cuts of songs or our audio. It went over the air. And I was like, and we're at a client. That this client was not at all about curse words. And I was just like, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I looked at this person, I looked at the engineer, and I'm like, how did that just happen? What did you do? So yeah, someone is always listening. So you have to, it goes back to the politics too. If you don't want to be caught doing something crazy or saying something crazy, then don't say it, because someone can always hear you.
Right.
So, and especially when you're in a studio or you're on remote or you're whatever, man, that old ass phrase of the walls have ears. No, they have microphones.
Yeah. I mean, that's like with life in general, with phones, and it's insane. I'm very careful about stuff like that. So then
I have footage of you not being that careful. So
moving on. Is there any
guys hit me on the side? I'll give you some TK uncensored.
A memorable moment in radio.
Memorable moment. I mean, there's a lot. Can you quantify, or can you make it a little more specific? Make it easier for me.
Okay, so to me, I mean, obviously, yeah, there are a lot of memorable moments, but for me, when I've been asked this question, it's kind of like that moment where like you're floating, like everything that you've worked for kind of has
Mm,
come to like the head, and you are at your like the happiest point you could possibly be, you know, because you know what I'm saying, you kind of like reach that mountaintop, and there's, you know, it's all, you know, a metaphor because there's always ups and downs, but like there's
it's
like
all downhill from here. Is that what you're saying?
there's always peaks and valleys. Go and check out that show with TK Trinidad. But there's like those ups and downs, like that moment. Like for me, like one of the top moments is when like I got to be top 10 in the nation for track and field, which I never
Okay,
imagined. So like I
amazing.
remember the like the smell of the grass. Like I remember every single like moment of that day. So is there like a memorable time in radio where it's just like, man,
I
I'm it's here?
I have two things that popped into my head with that specific. Um, I I love when we have an especially complicated show and it goes well. That to me, as the showrunner, as the person sweating through every minute of it, like if you ask Big or you ask my staff, like when we have a really intense show that's different than our normal, you know, show, like I am like a machine, I laser focused on the 10,000 things that have to go right for to pull off this show today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when that happens, I feel very proud, and I'm excited that we got it right, or you know, mostly right, and it's a hit. And okay, you know, and then I go home and I've got a fucking migraine headache because it just like literally, like I take it like really personally, like um, Big and I have built this show, and it's our baby, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And I'll say another one just for selfish reasons is Big. So when I started on the show, it was never my role to be on air. It still isn't my role to be on air, but I am. So when things happen on the show or they need to ask dad something in the room, I'm there. So, you know, and sometimes I've got, you know, different answers, right? Um, so we've broken that wall of just being like the faceless producer, you know, over time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do it for the awards. I don't do it for the accolades, but there are those moments where just out of nowhere, Big will just go into a story about the show or me and him or a moment of gratitude of something that went great or something like that. And it's just it's very selfish, but
Mm-hmm.
I love that too because the way it, you know, it doesn't do a lot for the audience. So even if he does that, I'll be like, okay, got it, cute, wrap it up, because the show is still number one. But it's interesting because I feel like him and I as partners, like he and I have known each other and been, you know, work married, right? Longer than any, you know, like romantic relationship that we have. Like I've known him longer than he's known his wife. And obviously, you know, my girlfriend right now, like, you know, he and I have been together for a very long time. So
Mm-hmm.
the interesting thing about the partnership too is that there's things that we do every day, and then there's things that we don't say every day. But like when we have those moments, it's like, yeah, I know, I love you too, buddy. And it's really well because it's like we work, but also it's way more than that, you
Yeah,
know.
no, I get
And
it.
it's not about like, you know, like, oh, what did you get me for a present, or you know, did you, you know, do this or that. Like it's, we know it's there, but we also know to like look out for each other and take care of each other and not ever be complacent. Because I mean that's how most relationships, you know, go south, is when people fuck it up or take it for granted, or don't really speak up
Feel
for
they
each other.
deserve
So
it just because, yeah.
the occasional funny joke he makes, or he throws me into something or something like that, I like it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I could dig it. I could dig it. Before we get out of here, I just want
Yes.
to make mention of your YouTube channel. I really don't know how you have time to, well, first off,
Yes.
on top of doing big boy stuff, like
Yeah.
you do a lot of other things. So can you like list it off? So like, or list off the stuff
Oh
that you
God.
want to list off, as far as what you do? Cause like you have a lot of projects going.
True. Well, the old phrase is, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person. And I think that more often than not, I am the busiest person. But now what's different about that is that I don't go looking for people to give me those. I create my own projects. So I do a lot with Big. I do a lot with iHeart. And then, yeah, personally, so you started to talk about, I have my own YouTube channel, and it's JRI World, which is right there on the screen. And I really saw, the value and the power of what we were creating socially for Big. And, I'm like, I really want to put something up for myself that is branded around me and adventures and travels and exciting things that happen in my life around music and things like that. I have it's not like the most exciting life, but I do have some really interesting things that happen and connections, and over time I've just found I I never was really big on like filming for myself. So a lot of it is catching up now of, the same way how I can, tell my team, here's where the bit gets funny, get to this as fast as possible, cut this part out, let's go. That's what I do for a living. And now when I do that for myself, it's funny. It's funny, like putting out my own product. And yeah, so it's a lot of, there's a lot on there, and it's really just a mirror of my life. I mean, there's stuff on there with my kids when they were little. There's stuff. I just had a son who is like 8 weeks old right now, and there's a lot of content about him. There was content up about our pregnancy, and my girl and I having a modern family that's very unconventional, about our relationship and living together, and and all of that. And then there's just straight up adventure too. It's like there's trips of whitewater rafting and zip lining and rock climbing and all sorts of things that I'm not really selling anything on there. I'm just showing people life, and long term, if it turns a couple dollars, whatever. I'm on there because I want to show people that there's a lot of stuff out there that's freaking great, and I have my own insights on it, and so there's a lot of opinion on there, on like reviews of places and stuff like that where we've been. I get a lot of feedback on those because people, if they've never been, I do a lot of international travel. So if they've never been to a certain country, or they've never been, and you've got 5 different hotels, how do you choose? And so I get a lot of people that are really grateful for the, no holds barred reviews, because it helps them make a decision as well, So there's a lot on there on JRI World YouTube, and it's hard. You were teasing about like the time of it, but like it's a lot of fucking work.
It is. That's why I couldn't believe you edit it. I'm like, you edit it too? Like
I produce, film, direct, edit, post, market, and I also build relationships internationally with people to help promote it. So whenever I'm out, it's like I make friends with people at this place, at that place, and whatever. And then when the video comes up, I'm like, oh, the video's up, you're in it. Here, tell your friends. But they put it up, and then all of a sudden, boop, there's a big blow up of people watching from Costa Rica. There's a big blow up of people watching from Thailand, Mexico. Like, I don't know. I have a very worldly view of life. And so, yeah, I like showing all sorts of different things. There's a lot of people showing the same old shit on YouTube. I try to not be another one of those people. I try to not be hyper repetitive of what other people are doing, because it's the same methodology of what I do for radio and for television with Big. And it's like, I don't like doing the same shit other people are doing. Like, okay, come on. Let's be unique. Like, let's give people a reason.
Yeah, and that also speaks to like the longevity of the show. Like, if you were doing the same thing and you were content with that, then you guys wouldn't be here today. So, I mean, and kudos to the editing part for YouTube, because I was surprised when you said you did it yourself, because that's a whole nother job in itself.
It's a lot. And I like literally we're filming this in the middle of the day, and I got up. I always get up before my girl and our son. And I was up at 6:00 this morning, starting another episode that I got to get posted before the end of the year. And all of a sudden I look up and it's like 20 minutes before we're going to start taping this. And I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even taken a shower yet. Like,
yeah, that editing.
I'm just like, right. I'm just in the cavern, but I love it. I really enjoy it too. And not that I didn't understand what our editors do, for our other shows, but I definitely respect it. And I also know when they're bullshitting, because I do it myself. So I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
You could have done it. Oh my gosh. Last question. I think you kind of answered it, but as far as, I to me, it seems like, even though like you said, radio is paying the bills. That's what you would concentrate on first. Where do you see radio in the next, 5 years? I don't see it changing much, but you can, tell me different, but next 10 to 20 years.
Well, that's a hard question. I think that radio is not going to change in 5 years or 10 years, much, because I think that it's tried and true. Like, my house is right a block away from an old grocery store that I don't believe they've put $1 in to remodel in 50 years. Because it gets a lot of traffic. It's busy. It's got people coming, in all day, all night. It's a very poppin' location, right? So why would they? Why would they make it any different?
Right.
Radio, I think that if we continue to respect the audience and, stay relevant, stay entertaining, I think that radio is going to live on for a very, very long time. People are used to it. People enjoy it. It may, continue to evolve, where maybe the rating systems in the future will be a little more accurate. That's a whole nother episode of like how ratings work. I think it would blow most people's minds of how fucking Neanderthal the ratings apparatus is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, to say the least. And so I think that in time, I would hope there would be some technical evolution of incorporating where people find you. So if somehow there's a way to, count the listening from radio and Instagram and, our episodes up on Spotify or iHeart, app,
and then put it all together.
Yeah. Like to be more accurate of, how people are finding your show. I think that there's still at this point a lot of scrambling of people trying to be everywhere for their audience, but you don't fully know who's there, how much they're enjoying it. It's just, again, I love our industry, but it just doesn't get all of the attention it should for how many people we're servicing on a daily basis. I mean, I guess, like I talked about this grocery store, it's like, the subway is going to be there every day. It may get a little rusty from time to time, or it may run late, but it's going to be there.
Still there.
Right. And radio, I think, is, like, it's tried and true, and people love it. If there was some shift, and I think this would have already happened because of the Howard Stern Sirius move. When Howard Stern left terrestrial radio, it put a lot of people on notice, and it put a lot of people out of work because there were entire like male-leaning rock or talk stations. I worked at one of them. My very first producing job was at the station Howard Stern was at. And when Howard left, those stations tried to bring in new people, and it didn't work, and they crumbled, right? So in theory, if Howard went to satellite, there could have been this exodus of all the talent going to satellite, and then radio would fall apart.
Right.
It hasn't happened. And I think Howard's been there 20 years now, roughly, something like that.
God.
So
yeah, it's probably hitting there.
I just think that everyone needs to have their place. Radio isn't going anywhere, and not in a complacent way. I mean, the curb down the street isn't going anywhere, but like radio, that's why I said, as long as we continue to respect the audience, to entertain the audience, to make them feel good. Like people who know our show, Big Boy's Neighborhood, it's not just about the music, the hip hop. It's not about the celebrities only. People feel good. Big is the person who can make you laugh. Big is the person that can make you feel okay after we have a terrorist attack. Like he's a real person that is, multifaceted, and it doesn't mean everybody is, but from my lane, I know what good radio sounds like. And I hope that people continue to invest in that and put out good shows. It'll be around. No, there's no reason for it to go anywhere.
Well, there it is. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you like to plug? Like you have your YouTube, all that good stuff. Is there anything else you want to put out there?
No, I'm not a plugger. It's listen to Big Boy. It's radiobigboy.com. JRI World is my Instagram and YouTube. All good. There
it is. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I don't get paid if more people go look at my Instagram and YouTube anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I mean, not yet. Not yet.
But go for the enjoyment.
I mean, it's incredible content. Like the fact that you edit all that is just kudos. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like we have to do a part 2 because there's more questions in a second part to this that I want to get to, but to kind of keep it so people are looking forward to it.
Let me know when. Well, yeah, we'll do that, or we'll do part 2 on my channel.
There it is. I like it. Is that an official invite?
Look at the cross promotion. How about that?
That's the official invite. I mean, then we're gonna make the announcement that you're gonna be the EP for all my shows. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna get there. I'm putting it in the universe. Thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for checking into the first episode of Convos with TK Trinidad. You can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Oh my gosh, my first guest, my mentor. This is amazing. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invite. This is a lot of fun.
TK Trinidad, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Hey, TK Trinidad, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.